Thank you for that fantastic welcome and introduction, and I'm very pleased that the doors are locked because you can't get out. So for the next half hour or so at least, I'm going to be speaking with you about maximising the opportunity that comes with managed accounts. I'm particularly pleased to be up speaking first, and really that's because I've had a look at that agenda and it's packed with every half hour, lots of experts and people sharing their expertise and experience and insights on some of the intricacies of managed accounts. And I think certainly Toby set out all of the different areas in managed accounts that are really important to take into account and how complex some of those decisions can actually be. What I'd like to do this morning, and Toby touched on it a little, is to really go broad and talk to you about what the context for an advisor's business is when they're looking at actually implementing managed accounts or changing their investment approach to implement something like this. So as we all know, an advisor's business, an advice practice, is not a simple being. It can be a really complex ecosystem, and the different decisions that are made, particularly in the investment approach space, really impact both the client but also the entire business strategy. So I've been a part of Macquarie and the Macquarie Virtual Advisor Network for around the last 6 years. And for those of you who don't know, we work with around 80 high-performing practices, both accounting and financial services. And we've seen up close their efforts and ambitions to grow and build sustainable businesses. And part of that, certainly in the last wee while, has been about the discussion around managed accounts. So over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you some of the observations that we've made working closely with those businesses, and also the broader observations of the market and the conversations that Macquarie are having. And also share with you some of the research that we do within Macquarie and the VAN network with practice principals about what's concerning them, but also with end clients. So what's important to them and what do they value as part of the process. So absolutely, today is about the investments in through the lens of managed accounts and portfolio management. First 30 minutes, I'm hoping to set up some context and perspective for the rest of the day based on what we're all here to do, which is grow successful, sustainable businesses for our practice principals, either if you are one of those or in supporting those. So I'm going to start with a word from our sponsor. And Toby's touched on this, and I've absolutely stolen this from the IMAT website, and the significant growth in managed accounts. And that's no surprise. The number of people in the room, I think, Toby, you said you're absolutely at capacity, and the room is kind of full to bursting. So certainly managed accounts it's taking a lot of the airtime in conversations in the industry. And look, I'm going to go on to some of the reasons from our research around that. But this TBC number, there's going to be a lot of influences that affect how big that number is. I know Toby said the next study is in field right now. One of the influences, we believe, is how successfully and effectively and smoothly a practice can implement managed accounts. Managed accounts have been around for 20 years, so why all the interest now? And I'm just going to share with you some data, again, just to set up context and perspective for the day. So we do a benchmarking study around every 2 years with practice principals, and we ask, what is it that's holding you back? So you're trying to grow, build successful, sustainable practices. What are the things that are your biggest pain points and that are holding you back from doing that? These were the top 6 that came out. So the first one, being drowned in admin, email, paperwork and compliance. So that's not actually just practice principles, that's all of us. really getting drowned in email and admin and paperwork. But that second point there around increased regulation really is driving that to be even more of a burden for practices and how they operate. The third one there, scalability of current processes. So in some of the conversations that we're having out in the market, some practices are telling us that basically their processes haven't changed for the last 10 years. So they're still doing the same things as 10 years ago with a massive amount of extra compliance, paperwork, email, and they're trying to grow in that environment. So the lack of scalability, including the kind of, with those manual processes, the kind of impact of losing a key person from your back office. I think you would think that anybody who's running a practice knows that there's those one or two people that hold the wheels on the cart. And if one of them leaves, your business and your growth ambitions are set back some point. So the scalability of processes is a real issue that practice principals are trying to get their heads around. Managing risks, absolutely. And as well as the key person risk that I've already talked about, there's also the risks around when a practice is trying to grow and potentially acquiring new advisors who have their own ways of doing things, then not having consistency across the advice process is a risk. Around, and this is particularly relevant to managed accounts, but around the time it takes to implement changes to portfolios, and potentially the incorrect admin or implementation of client instructions. So lots of risks to be managed, and that's not even mentioning the compliance and regulations. Cost and margin pressures. Well, the margin pressure piece is really a combination of everything that I've just talked about. So with all of those admin pressures and the increased regulation, costs are going up. And trying to manage those costs, as well as explain to clients why the costs are going up in an environment where clients can go online and have a look at what it actually costs in an online environment to invest their money. An absolutely different experience, but there is a comparison there that all of a sudden practices are having to really define their value proposition much more clearly to be able to just hold fees at where they are, let alone increase them to match the costs. So there is this cost and margin pressure. And the last thing is about managing growth. Again, it's a bit cumulative from all those different issues, but just hands up, who actually is in a practice? Who manages a practice here? Yeah, okay. So, and anybody that manages people will kind of get this, but some of the conversations we have about managing growth is that the problem with everything at the moment is that the way I run the business is that I get X new clients, which is fantastic. I have to put on Y new people, and that brings with it Z new headaches. Does anybody agree with that? So how do I scale my business in a really effective way and manage growth without the costs and the headaches going through the roof? So they're the top 6 pain points from our research from practice principals about what's holding them back from growing their businesses. It's no wonder then that managed accounts in all its flavours are such a compelling proposition. Because as you can see there on the left of the screen, there's a whole lot of benefits to managed accounts that can tick those boxes and solve those pain points. It's a really compelling proposition. So in a lot of the conversations that we're having out in market, the question becomes, which flavour? So how do I set this up in a way that's going to be right for my business? And importantly, how quickly can I have it? Now that's absolutely what you would expect. We're human beings, we want to move away from pain, and there are some really burning platform pain points that are the priority for practices to be solving right now. So the how quickly question comes up quite often. Our response is managed accounts in all of their different guises are not a plug-in, plug-out solution. So in changing the investment approach, a business really has to think about, okay, whatever I'm plugging out and whichever decisions I make about what managed account solution is right for my business and my clients, plugging it in and plugging it out isn't going to be as simple as that. So the question, how quickly, is it depends. It depends on the level of change, and it also depends on how much thinking has been done about the context in which this change is going to happen. So sooner or later, during that conversation, or if a practice is already driven to implement the managed accounts, we get asked this question. But what do I tell my clients? So one of the things that I talked about that was a pain point was being able to talk about fees and prove my value proposition. Now, if we take the extreme example and we say that when we ask practices, why does a client come to your business? What value do they get? And they say, the value is that I am the investment expert. If all of a sudden that's no longer the case is actually that I'm the manager of the investment experts, then that's quite a shift for the client and actually for the advisors in your business. So how, if I'm already struggling against the environment of technology, robo, clients being more educated, Google, the Google financial advisor, then how do I make sure that my clients understand that this shift is valuable to them and the value that I'm still bringing to the relationship? So let's take a look at some other research we did, which we do this every year with our band members, which is a study we call the propensity study. And it's really about the end client's propensity to add value to your business through recommending the advisor, through staying, so through retention, and through giving you more business. So it's basically a satisfaction survey, and we look at around 29 different aspects of the advice process, and we do some analysis to have a look at what are the key drivers of satisfaction. And each year, different things pop up, and I'm going to share with you what's come up this year. What are the top 5 things if one of the key things about successfully implementing managed accounts is to ensure you've got your value proposition right, that's going to be compelling to the client, what is it that they're going to find valuable? So the first one there is pretty obvious and is a bit of a hygiene factor. So my advisor manages my portfolio. The full piece is my advisor manages my portfolio for the best risk and return outcomes for me. So hygiene factor. The other questions in there, funnily enough, are I respect my advisor's investment expertise. And that hasn't yet made it into the top 20 of what absolutely drives client satisfaction with the advice process. The other one is the fees are fair. So I feel like the fees I pay are fair. So fees aren't a driver of satisfaction either, according to this study. So number 1 is my advisor manages my portfolio for risk and return, the risk and return outcomes that are important to me personally. The second one is I receive the right level of information about my progress. Now, what's that about? That's not about the numbers, that's about managing fears. So the success in this area looks like the client not waking up at 3 a.m. saying, I don't know what's happening with my finances and my future. So keeping them informed with the right level of information, which is different for each person and different for each skill level, is the second most important thing that clients value. The third one, and this is new this year, is my advisor connects me to others as needed. So this has been in the survey now for about the past 6 or 7 years, and this is the first time it's popped up in the first 5. What we're putting this down to is that the client doesn't have the sensitivity to understand what an advisor does versus what an accountant does versus what an SMSF administrator does versus what an investment manager does. They see it as, I need someone to help me manage my money. So when they go to an advice practice and they place their trust in an advisor, they're actually placing trust in the advisor to understand their needs, all of their needs, and to help them manage those needs, whether by the advisor themselves or within the house of the advisor, or to recommend them to somebody else. So this is becoming more and more important in this age of convergence of accounting practices and financial advisors, that clients, no matter how better educated they are, still expect to put their trust in one person, and for that trust to be fulfilled by taking care of all their financial needs. So really, really important one. Number 4 is about my advisor proactively manages my affairs. So I'm not a name in a filing cabinet, or more often a number in Xplan. I actually have a relationship with the advisor, and that's as important to the advisor as well, and they go out of their way to make sure that I'm going to be able to meet my life goals. And finally, my advisor helps improve my financial knowledge. So is this about the detailed intricacies and technicalities of the market? Actually, when we go and talk to these clients, no, it's about the benchmark is I want to be able to go to the barbecue on the weekend and be able to explain to my friends what I'm doing with my money so that I can take that trip around Australia, buy that investment property that's going to be my holiday house, and retire. So if I can join those dots and I understand it myself, then that level of education is really important. So you'll notice that along the bottom there's some blue words, and what we do, rather than just having a laundry list of attributes of the advice process, we actually break it into 4 different sections. And personalisation is the one that comes right at the top. So what is the most important thing that a client values about the advice experience is that the experience is personalised to me and I'm getting what I need to meet my life goals. So personalisation is actually where the value is. The experience that I have, the fear that's managed properly, the education that I have to feel comfortable and in control, the not waking up at 3 in the morning. So it's that personalisation of, and the knowledge that I'm going to reach my goals at different periods of time, whether that's a new car in the next 5 years, an overseas trip in the next 10, retirement in the next 15. So that's what is important to the client. When we share this information, sometimes the response we get is, but doesn't that mean I have to customise every portfolio? And actually, no. So it's the experience that the client wants personalised. The actual portfolio is the how. So it doesn't need to be customised. I'm talking in broad brushstrokes. Of course, there will be clients that care about that and that customisation is really important to them. But broadly, if the experience is personalised, then the actual portfolio can be systematised as long as it helps meet their goals and they understand how. So in a sense, by operating a much more efficient model, systematised model through managed accounts, it enables the practice to focus more on the personalisation aspect of the experience. So actually by systematising, it enables the personalisation of the experience for the client. So the practice principle says, awesome, I get to solve my pain points, systemise my processes through the implementation of managed accounts, and I free up my practice to be able to focus on what the clients really value, which is the personalised experience. Sounds pretty good. That's when we hit, sometimes, speed bump number 2. Speed bump number 2 is the practice actually set up to deliver this experience? Sometimes it is, and it's a checklist of I need to think things through and make sure that we're in the right place. Sometimes it's a bigger change management process than that. When you think about, again, that example that I used before, that you're moving to this model and you have an advisor that for the past 20 years has been getting up in the morning, looking in the mirror and saying, my role is to be the absolute expert in investments for my clients. And, as I said, the extreme example, we're asking them to now say, I manage the investment experts and I'm the expert in the client's needs and gathering a team of people together to meet those needs. That's quite a shift. So the question then is, in implementing managed accounts, are practices really clear on what their value is and how they're going to execute that through the business? So what I'd like to do is share with you a bit of a case study. So for the next kind of 5 minutes or so. Gareth Jakeman from Pracius is someone that we've worked closely with over the last couple of years, and it's been a pleasure to witness his business, so Pracius, and their process that they've gone through in implementing managed accounts. So the first thing that Gareth and the team did was say, okay, what is the opportunity that managed accounts gives us as a business? And what's our strategic vision, not just for the next 2 years and solving the pain points that are really annoying me now, but what's our strategic vision over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And certainly that was about growth. Pracius is multi-location, multi-advisor, and it was about growth and sustainability and scalability. And certainly to be able to do that and achieve that required a different approach than they had. So there was absolutely, in terms of the leadership of that business, complete alignment on that's what we want to do and we'll do whatever we need to get there. So the second thing Pracius did was say, okay, let's step back and get a laser-like focus on what it is that we do as a business that adds value. So as part of looking at things like the client research and what drives value, etc., they decided that absolutely they were going to be that business that were investment experts, moving to the manager of the investment experts and the holistic expert in the client's needs. And that they were going to get really close to the client and have really smart ways of helping the client achieve their goals. They also re-looked at their suite of tools, their brand, their articulation of that, and made sure that before they pushed the button, they had all the tools that they needed in the articulation to make sure that the client would understand the value that they were now offering. Third thing, resourcing. So, and Gareth is on stage later today, so you can pepper him with questions. But when he looked at, if we've got this laser-like focus on what we do and the value that we add, then that means that we can actually step back from all the other things, and we need to find the people in the market who do those things best and do them faster, more efficiently, more accurately, and are more at the forefront of that particular skill set, like investment management, than we can ever be. So find the right partners, outsource, and make sure that the business is set up for scale by outsourcing to the right people. And the final thing, which is possibly the most important, is people. So taking those people on a journey from this is where we are today and this is where we're headed, this is where we want to go and this is why, and this is your role in that, and ensuring that those people, particularly the advisors, understood the benefits of partnering with others to take over some of the role that they used to do, and had real faith in those people and the systems and the processes, was really important. So several PD days, education, lots of talking, lots of debate, taking those people on a journey is an ongoing process, but was absolutely put in place before pressing the button on the managed accounts. So I think that is a great case study of someone who actually did transform their business using the opportunity of managed accounts to do that, because without that opportunity, that transformation wouldn't have been as possible in terms of getting the kind of benefits that Process is now seeing. So I think it's a great example of the change management process. Not all practices will need to go through that, but I think it is beholden upon those of us who work with practices to actually think about, before rushing headlong into to get the advantages and the solution of managed accounts, what's the context? How can we help people think through actually how is this part of the ecosystem going to affect that part of the ecosystem, and how do we make this transition as smooth as possible for our clients, for our business, and for our teams? So at Macquarie, we've been doing managed accounts now for around 15 years. You'll be hearing from some of our experts later in the day, and like everybody else, we've ramped up and we've got teams of experts now doing this. But we also think part of our purpose as a partner to our businesses is to explore this kind of work, and I'd encourage us all to actually have that perspective and context going in for today. And it sounds like there will also be an advisor roadshow going into more detail later. Thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate that, and enjoy the rest of your day.